I'm going to start with the next topic, that is a process costing, which is the different from the job costing, right? So if in nutshell, if I say process costing, this is the process costing will be calculated on the basis of the department wise. So department to department wise, not the unit wise, right? Okay, so in this case, I will be covering like um, some of the important uh, topics, right? So the learning objective of this lesson, that will be understand the difference or distinction between the job order and process costing system. Describe the cost concept relevant to the process costing and the flow of cost through the costing system, and understand the concept of equivalent units of production and its computation. Apply the weighted average method to account for the flow of production and cost, and prepare a production report. Apply the FIFO method to determine the equivalent unit of production. Prepare production cost report using the FIFO method to account for the flow of production and production cost. And compare the both methods like WACM and the FIFO methods or approach. Now, we know that we have here types of costing. So types of uh, costing system used to find out and determine the production cost. We have process costing and job costing. Many unit of single or homogeneous product flow evenly through the continuation production process. One unit of product is indistinguishable, means not distinguishable. We cannot distinguish this product is different from another. It means homogeneous, means the same kind of product from any other unit of production. If the mouse is prepared, the one mouse is identical to the another mouse, no difference at all. Take an example, in the factory mill, maybe some a notebook are prepared. You just go to the Dollarama and you find some of the notebooks. You go to Staples, you find some notebooks. If those notebooks, for example, maybe costing $2 or $3 or $5, and those notebooks are available and manufactured by some manufacturing units, manufacturing company, right? So from those, the same kind of items are produced. This is known as homogeneous product. And each unit of a product is assigned the same average cost. There will be the same average cost for that product. If product is there, what will be the cost of that? That will be the same for every product, right? Because all these are the homogeneous product. So in that case, we use process costing, not the job order costing. So process costing. So now if you talk about uh, the typical process cost applications is example is in front of you. Petrochemical refinery, right? Petroleum. Paint manufacturer, paper mill, right? So these are the examples for the process costing. So similarity between the job order and process costing is both have a common purpose. Means in the both, we definitely assign the material, we assign the labor and overhead cost to the production. Yes, we do that in both of the cases, whether this is process costing or this is a job order costing, and provide a mechanism for computing the unit cost. Yes, in both cases, we find what is the cost per unit. So both use and maintain the same basic accounts. I mean, manufacturing overhead we use, yes, raw material, work in progress, and finished goods. All things that are the same, no difference at all. These are the some of the similarities that we discussed. Difference between job costing, job order, and process costing. So job order costing and process costing, these are the two terms that we are using here. The first difference is many different jobs are worked on during each period. Sorry. with each job having a different production requirement. So in job costing, different production requirement mean each job number one, job number two, job number three, as we have discussed in the previous chapter. But in case of a single product is produced either on continuous basis for a long period of time, or maybe for the long period of time, all units of the product are same or identical. In job costing, job order costing, costs are accumulated by individual job. Here, the costs are accumulated by the department or maybe a process. So cost of each input is allocated separately to account for the fact that the continuous process input may not be added at the same rate or the, the same time in the production process. The third point is the cost order sheet. The job cost sheet is the important or key document controlling the accumulation of cost by job. So job cost sheet that we discussed last time, there was just one bill, that was the cost sheet, maybe material cost sheet, labor cost sheet. On the basis of that, those cost sheets are associated with the different job 1, 2, 3, 4 that we calculate. But here is a different criteria. The department production report is the main document, is the key document showing the accumulation and disposition of the cost by department. So department by department, here the job by job. This is the main difference. So unit costs are computed by job on the job cost sheet. Here the unit costs are computed by the department on the department production report. This is the main difference, right? Now look at this. This is the flow of material, labor, and overhead. Three things that we are calculating from the very first day, and this is known as a direct material, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. Exactly the same thing that we use in the cost, in the unit costing, right? In the job costing, the same thing that we will be using for the process costing or for the processing department. There is the department. One department is there. We use direct material for that department, labor and manufacturing overhead. And then the finished goods will be the outcome from that, right? And that we will calculate the cost of goods sold, right? So what is the sequential processing department? So in process costing, each processing department would have its own work in process account, own work in process account. Okay, so now processing department 1 is here. So partially completed goods are there, and that will be shifted to the department 2. Then from the department 2 to the department 3, right? So this is department wise costing system that we calculate. So here, for example, the completed goods. So we have the finished goods. Take an example of a car. In a car, a rim is prepared in one department. So only rims are prepared in this department. And here the only chassis are repaired in this department, right? And department 3 is maybe the assembly department, and plus assembling plus uh, other items are manufactured, right? So after then there will be a completed goods, that will be the finished goods, that will be the output. So this will be department wise department. Now look at this. So processing basic raw material that we put in the first department, for example, that is the processing department number 1. So we will calculate the processing cost. Then partially completed goods that will be shifted from this department to the another department, do some another process, right? So that is the different department. So department 2, here some of the processing cost will be done, right? So once some of the processing cost will be incurred, maybe the labor or something other material may be required, right? Or some other things may be required. So that is the processed. Then partially completed goods will be then go to the processing department 3. Then some processing cost will be incurred, maybe labor cost or overhead cost. Then completed goods and finished. Now look at this, the flow of cost. If you talk about the material, So we have material, we have purchased some material here, raw material is there, manufacturing overhead is there, right? So, okay, if we have raw material here, we have direct material or indirect material, and work in progress one department, work in progress second department. Now what we are going to do, see the direct material we have, so in direct material that will be shifted to department mixing department first, and also to the finishing department, right? And after that indirect material, if we say, that will be a manufacturing overhead, so that will be indirect material, that will be sent to this department as a manufacturing overhead. Okay, so indirect material, that maybe some glue or some lubricants that we use, right? So that also a part of a manufacturing, but not a direct, indirect material, so that will be manufacturing overhead. Okay, now next we can see the journal entry for this. For example, uh, some of the goods or material are purchased. So material are purchased, the raw material account debited to account payable. This is the general entry normally that we do. Now that material that we have purchased is going to transfer to the mixing department and finishing department. The material that we bought here, like here debit and here credit. So from here, some of the material has been given transferred to the mixing department. Some of the material is transferred to the finishing department. So this is to record the use of direct material. Now, if we talk about the labor, wages payable, we have here direct labor or indirect labor. Exactly the same thing that we did for the material, and same thing that we are implementing for the labors as well. So labor, some of the labor that will be used, right? Maybe 5 or 10 employees that they are used for this department, and 10 employees or 20 employees they use for the other department, maybe finishing department, right? So two department. So direct labor we can calculate directly. Some other labor is also there, which is known as indirect labor, which it is very difficult to calculate. So in which department they worked, maybe the gatekeeper may be for the both of their department, right? So security guard may be for the both of the department. So that will be indirect labor. So indirect labor that will be considered as the manufacturing overhead that will be calculated here. So this was labor. Previously, it was a material. So material and labor. Now entry for the labor. So work in progress, definitely after the material, there will be next step will be the work in progress, and last will be the finished goods. So work in progress for the mixing department and finishing department, we have some labor, means salary and wages payable. So to record the direct labor cost, we have calculated this one. Now, let's say manufacturing overhead. If we talk about the manufacturing overhead, we have here manufacturing overhead. Look at this. So all the overheads applied to the work in progress will be calculated on the department wise. So this department plus this department means mixing department and finishing department we have here. Overhead applied. So overhead applied rate, that we know how to calculate the overhead applied rate, right? So accordingly that we are just going to apply these expenditure. These are the expenditure. Overhead mean expenditures, right? So this is for the manufacturing overhead. Now entry will be work in progress here, work in progress the mixing department, and work in progress the finishing department. So the manufacturing overhead, that is the main expenditure over here. Now, next we have here transferred in cost. What is the meaning of transferred in cost? Material, labor, and overheads can be added in any processes department. Okay, we know that there are a number of departments: first department, second department, and third department. Material can be used in any department. Labor can be used in any department. Overhead cost can be added in any processing department. Not just the first department. So the cost in the second or third department would consist of material, labor, overhead, like incurred in that department. And what is the meaning of this? It means we will calculate overheads department wise. The cost attached to the partially completed units transferred in from the prior department. It means from the previous department, the cost, let's say, is a $5,000 costing. So that material is going to transfer to from the first to the second department. Then that will be considered as expenditure for that department, means the second department. So these transferring is known as, these costs are known as transferred in cost. Transferred in cost. Okay. So now flow of material, labor, and overhead cost. Now let's transfer the partially completed goods from the mixing department to finishing department. So how to transfer? Let's say we have here work in progress, and also this is a work in progress. So work in progress is a mixing department, and here work in progress for finishing department. Now here the transfer of some of the goods which are finished, as I have given you one example of alloy wheel that is manufactured here in this department, because this department was only and only manufacturing wheels, right? So the ones wheels are created, then they are just going to transfer to the finishing department, right? So this, the cost will be, this will be the cost for this department, right? So that will be this, that expenditure. Now next, if we see that what is the journal entry for this? So transferred, it means work in progress, the finished department account debit, the work in progress in mixing department. So material from the mixing department is decreased, so credit, and it was increased, so debited, right? So we will cover how the transferred is in cost are calculated in another section. So next section, I'm just going to, will be going to explain with example. So the cost have been completed in the finishing department, means the goods have been completed in the finishing department and will be transferred to the finished goods inventory when they are ready to be sold. It means from the finished department, some of the goods will go to the finishing goods, transfer to the finished goods inventory, that will be the stock. Okay, so now work in progress, finished department. Now the finishing department is there. From the mixing to the finishing. Now from the finishing, we are going to transfer to the finished goods, and we are transferred to the cost of goods sold, right? So cost of goods manufactured, will be calculated here, and after then the finished goods will be transferred, right? Finished goods will be transferred. So cost of goods manufactured in the finished goods, right? The cost of goods sold, right? The cost of goods sold. Some of the goods will be sold, some of the goods will remain here as a closing stock in the finished goods. So the cost of goods sold will be transferred to the cost of goods sold account. Now entry, finished goods is debit to work in progress finishing department. So finished goods department will have this much of quantity of material, means the finished goods maybe 5 car, and work in progress the finishing department will be reduced by that 5 cars amount. Now account at the time of selling, cost of goods sold, account receivable, account debit to sale. Now 2 or 3 cars have sold, right? So account receivable, debtors, account debit to sale. So goods has gone, and plus cost of goods sold to finished goods. From the finished goods, these are the cost of the goods which have been sold. This is the cost, and this is the sale, right? Sale will be, selling price will be different from the cost price. Now product cost category, if you talk about the product cost category, companies that typically use the process costing system for determining the product cost are normally very automated, right? Labor will usually be very small proportion of total manufacturing cost. Labor and manufacturing overhead costs are commonly combined together and called conversion cost. Okay, this is very important. Labor plus manufacturing overhead. I'm repeating again. Labor, not a material. Because in this case, labor will usually, normally what happens, the labor will usually be very small proportion of the total manufacturing cost. So labor and manufacturing overhead cost are commonly combined together. So, and this the combination of these two is known as conversion cost, right? So process costing system assign conversion cost and material cost. So it means there will be two costing. That one will be the conversion cost, and second will be material. It is just like this is, you can say, direct material, and the conversion is known as direct labor and manufacturing overhead. Okay, now that is known as conversion cost here in the processing costing system. Look at this, half is this one, half is this one, this is the full one. Like, so this is known as equivalent unit cost or production. What is the meaning of equivalent unit? So equivalent unit are partially completed and are part of the work in progress inventory. It is a concept of expressing a partially completed products as a smaller number of fully completed units. What is the meaning of this? It means, for example, one and a half completed products are equivalent to the one completed product. For example, 10,000 units were produced. We can say like this in production, we have some units which is partially completed. We say when the production manager asks like, what do you mean by this, and how much time it will take, and how much this unit is completed? They said 70% of this is completed. It means if 70% is completed, 30% is the remaining, that will be completed later on. But at the time of calculation, maybe at the end of the period, maybe at the end of the year or a month, we need to do some calculation that how much unit that we have produced. On the basis of that cost, that cost divided by number of unit, cost per unit will be calculated. So for that sake, we need to understand like 70% complete. It means 7,000 units are completed. This is known as equivalent units of production. Equivalent unit. Look at this one more example. The closing stock of 200 unit in progress. This always we calculated the work in progress with the 60% complete in respect of the material, wages and overheads, which is equivalent to 120 units. Like it means 60% of 200 is 120 units is completed, right? Which is known as 120 equivalent unit of production, means 100% complete that we consider. One example is in front of you. For the current period, matrix started 15,000 units and completed 10,000 units. So 10,000 units are 100% completed, but leaving 5,000 unit in process. So in process, which is a 5,000. Okay. Now manager asked and replied by the another department like 30% is completed. Okay, how many equivalent unit of production did matrix have for the period? Now you need to give answer in the chat box right now. Send answer in the chat box directly. So what is the answer now? Just I'm giving you 30 seconds. What is the right answer? Let me know. Okay, so right answer is in front of you. You can see that 11,500. Okay, so 10,000 unit is completed, 5,000 which is in process, but 30% is completed. So that's why 1,500 will be added in the 10,000, 11,500 equivalent unit. Right?